Calaroga Shark Media.
Oh man, are you excited? It's Jason Kelce's late night show debut tonight at 1 a.m., which technically is tomorrow, but ESPN doesn't want you to talk about that. We're going to pretend it's Friday night, not Saturday morning. Who cares, John? They call it late night because it's 5-week run Friday nights at 1 a.m. Saturday on ESPN, taped in front of a live audience in Philadelphia. Topics discussed will be mainly football and the weekend's games. However, he plans to have guests from all walks of life. Whitney Cummings not wasting any time in the new year. The second leg of her Big Baby North American tour kicks off today in Austin. She will also play cities such as Tampa, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Napa, Milwaukee, Seattle, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Knoxville. She'll also do 4 cities at the Great Outdoors Comedy Festival in Canada. Boy, they're booking quite the lineup. Fans can expect her to take on the chaos of personal growth, owning her mistakes and her reflections on raising a son. Whitney told Deadline, "I'm so psyched to add more cities to the Big Baby Tour, especially since my big baby loves to tour. I used to think having a kid would be the end of my comedy and touring career, so it's been a miracle to see so many people coming out to hear what I have to say about motherhood and being so excited for me to finally grow up and start building a family after sharing so much about my crappy childhood and relationship mistakes. Also, I'm trying to leave California, so each city I go to, I'm also auditioning for a new hometown." 2 shows tonight at Rogan's Club, the Comedy Mothership, 7 and 10. Also 2 tomorrow and an 8 o'clock show on Sunday night. Jim Jefferies spoke to Rolling Stone about his chunk about America's need for gun control. Jim estimates that 16-minute chunk has been seen 10 times more than anything else he's ever done. Some people don't appreciate the bit, and he's gotten death threats. Jim says, yeah, you get those, but if someone's going to kill you, they're not going to send you a threat. Every time I get a death threat, I feel a little safer. You know what I mean? Could there be a weaker action in this world than somebody on social media sending you a death threat? He then goes on to say, like if, insert famous people here, haven't been assassinated, why would I be first? I've got to be low on the list. Like, you're kidding me, right? They're going to go Gandhi, Martin Luther King, JFK, John Lennon, Jim Jefferies? Come on now. And he says, I do feel like I'm this comedian who's both loved and hated by the left and the right. Anthony Jeselnik talked to Cracked about cutting up clips the way the younger comedians do. And he says, I understand why the clips are popular and why they help. YouTube used to be the thing. Now it really is TikTok and Instagram. Everybody says, I love your clips. And I think I'm uniquely suited to that format just through sheer luck, where you can use all my back catalog. Even though I haven't been doing anything but touring for the past 2 years, I've had a social media team that's gotten me close to 1 million followers on those platforms just through old things. I don't know what I'd be doing if I was starting out today. I don't know if I would try to get on more multimedia, maybe try to write more. Maybe I would have started my own podcast earlier on. I just always wanted to be a stand-up, and now it seems like the top thing you can do in stand-up comedy isn't stand-up, it's podcasting. Podcasting is its own TV show now. It's gotten a little weird for my taste. It used to be, we're just hanging out, effing around. Who's listening to this? We have no idea. Now it's about money. Now it's like, if I show up and I'm not in a good mood on your podcast, I'm costing you money. If I say something bad about your podcast, it's affecting someone's bag. I think that's changed the art. I think talking trash about other comedians, comics being like, that joke sucks, watch what I can do. It's like in hip hop where everybody's feuding all the time. It's good for the art form. Whereas in stand-up now, there's so much money in podcasting, you can't say anything. Otherwise, you're a hater or you're jealous of someone's Patreon, which is insane to me that that's even a real thing. Boy, that's a really interesting answer there, right? Jeselnik, if you told me that I'd become a stand-up comedian, it would be my greatest dream. I don't have a boss. I don't have to listen to anyone. But if they're like, you better pay attention to what Joe Rogan thinks and what he says, because Joe Rogan could really help your career, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Joe's fine, but I don't want to live my life in a way that I have to worry about what he thinks. I'm sure as a bleep I'm not going to move to the city he lives in. I'm embarrassed by what a lot of comedy has become. John Mulaney told GQ that when John first told his father he wanted to be a comedian, Dad's response was, best case scenario, you're like, what, Steve Martin? Is there something wrong with being Steve Martin? Dude's had a Hall of Fame career. Mulaney said, Dad has since chilled. I think he enjoyed seeing, it's a thing people do respect, which was fun for me to watch. I didn't need them to suddenly become stage parents or love everything I say or even think that comedy's important. I don't need that. Ali Siddiq talked to the Philly Tribune. He works out of Houston. He said, I've always been proactive and independent, which is why I chose to live in Houston. The entertainment industry here is not as robust as in other cities, so our artists are primarily independent. We have a strong do-it-yourself mentality among our R&B singers, actors, actresses, rappers, and entrepreneurs. We do things ourselves because we know if we don't, we'll always be waiting for someone else to give us a chance. I've been a stand-up comic for 27 years. I wasn't initially involved in social media because I began my career before it became a major platform. Back then, comics focused on getting TV shows or finding someone else to produce their specials. I did a network special with Comedy Central, but they owned it and controlled it. They released it whenever they wanted, which felt like leaving my career in someone else's hands. As I prepared the content for my special, I began saving money and setting it aside. Simultaneously, I appeared on various TV shows, but I strategically avoided burning the material I intended to use for the special. Instead, I carefully crafted my performance within the context of each show, ensuring I would retain ownership of the specific content. I'm hearing more and more of that from comedians. And good for them, right? I mean, we have ways to distribute things. You could be some idiot in a basement talking about comedians, and you can self-distribute. It's kind of cool. This is interesting. He says, in my early work, I used physicality, but I always wanted to express a story through movement. As my artistic perspective evolved, I learned how important it was to understand the essence of my topics. Rather than focus on apparent similarities, I attempted to identify the distinguishing characteristics that set people apart. Take Richard Pryor, for example. Many people appreciate him for his profanity and frank comedy, but that isn't the real meaning of his work. Pryor's comedy delves deeper, presenting perspectives on life and the transformational power of personal experiences. His debut film, JoJo Dancer, was a reflection of his personal life, while Paul Mooney and Des White brought their own narrative styles to the stage. I carefully consider the perspective from which I tell a story, the underlying message, and the reasons for sharing it when constructing it. For me, everything revolves around considering the responsibility I bear for something. Hampton.com spoke to Jim Breuer. Jim says his comedy really started in 6th grade. That's when it really started. I wrote a sketch. We did a talent show, and it made everybody howl. He called it his first bug for show business. I started writing material and visualizing and following fellow Long Islander Eddie Murphy. By the end of high school, he was the class clown. He says landing Saturday Night Live was painful for him, as he feels he wasn't wanted by the show's management, but by NBC executives at a time when the show was not spiking in the ratings. Once he was on SNL, he learned about the power of a great sketch, saying, Molly Shannon did that sketch, Mary Kathleen Gallagher, and she murdered. I never saw an audience react like that from a sketch. That's what I wanted to do, not just some half-ass sketches. He says he found his footing on the show by accident. He was talking to an intern, and Breuer says, hear me messing around doing my Joe Pesci in the break room. And the intern said, hey, dude, you got to do Joe Pesci on Update. And that led to the skit, the Joe Pesci show, that in my opinion saved my job. That's what saved me from that moment on. Lorne Michaels told Breuer, you have to do something that people know you so that they know it's you doing Joe Pesci. When the SNL gig came to an end, Lorne told Breuer, you're too nice for this industry. If you ever need a producer, I'm your guy. As for the future, Jim says even if he doesn't do a full-blown tour, he can't see himself not going on a stage. Jim says, I got to see Richard Pryor shortly before he was immobile from MS, and it was inspiring and one of the most powerful comedic moments. I always look for him, and I went to the Comedy Store one night literally hoping he'd be there, and after going there every night when he was in LA, on the very last night, magic happened. I was getting ready to leave, and all of a sudden they said, please welcome special guest Mr. Richard Pryor. There was a whole bunch of people helping him walk, holding him up. They brought him onto the stage. He talked slowly, but he was so funny. I can remember it as it was yesterday. He was talking about the most painful stuff in his life, but he was putting it out there, and it was powerful and amazing. To this day, it was such a powerful moment. I want to do that pretty much right to the end. And that's your comedy news for today. If you enjoy the program, tell a friend about it. Hopefully they'll enjoy it too. And you can all hit follow on one of them there podcast apps if you like the program without commercial interruption. Open up the Apple Podcast app. There's a banner there. Click on it. $5 a month. You get this show and a bunch of others, including 5 Good News Stories, which I also host. You get about 20 plus podcasts, commercial free, $5 a month. Great way to support the show. I appreciate those of you who do that, and I will see you tomorrow.